In this session, we're going to take a look at managing alerts generated by EventSentry service monitoring feature. Now, we generally already covered how we can manage services in the service monitoring component of EventSentry. So as a reminder, if we go to System Health and go to the Services package, the default package that EventSentry ships with, then we already have a list of services here that we're not generating alerts for. So anything that's included here in this list is going to get monitored. It's going to appear in the web report. So if we go here under service status, we can see all these services here. So 864, in fact, that we're monitoring, but no alerts are going to be generated if anything happens to these services. So when the service stops or starts and whatnot, there are not going to be any alerts, meaning that the alerts that we are getting should be mostly relevant. However, you'll find that there's probably still some service that we want to track, but there's just certain aspects of the service change that we may not be interested in, or we may want to dispatch certain service activity to somebody else or to a certain action, for example, maybe a ticketing system, a script to take remediation action, and so forth. So thankfully, EventSentry already ships with a number of filters that manage service monitoring alerts, and those can be found under EventSentry alerts in the service monitoring folder. And we're going to take a look at them just to understand them, and then we are going to create a new filter to dispatch certain service status changes to the desktop action. So let's take a look at the first filter here, Google Chrome elevation service. So Google Chrome, the browser, actually installs this elevation service in the background when you install Google Chrome, and it seems to be handling recovery and updates and so forth. Now, we definitely want to know that this service is running. We want to make sure it doesn't get tampered with, for example, or abused in some fashion. However, this service does change frequently, and what changes is the executable. So the service remains installed, however, the executable points to a newer version. Sometimes that path changes. So that can generate essentially false alerts. And here is where, a good old-fashioned event log filter in EventSentry comes in, because we can go in and we can say, well, we care about this service in general, so we may want to know if it's added or removed. And again, this is just an example, so this would apply to any other service as well. But in this particular case, what we're saying is we may care and want to know if the service gets installed, but we may not care if the path of the executable changes. So if we click lookup here, we'll see the actual event that this is referring to. And it says here, the executable for service, Google Chrome elevation service, changed from this to that. So we are basically saying we are okay if the path remains the same and just the end, the executable itself changes. If that happens, then we want to exclude this. So that would be a good example of an alert that sits on top of the actual service monitoring, because in service monitoring itself, we can't be that granular and say, well, we want to monitor the Google Chrome service, but we don't care about this and that, and it'd make the interface very cluttered if we had all those rules in there. So that's why certain things, some of the more advanced filtering is offloaded to the event log filters. And looking through a couple of the other ones, same thing here for Edge. So since Edge is also Chrome based, it's pretty much almost identical, except that the path here is different and the name of the service is slightly different. Here we're looking at certain services that are added and removed that we don't care about. In this particular case, Windows Defender updates. So again, if we take a click on lookup here, we'll see a driver was added. So that's the 10.151, and 10.152 would be a driver being removed. So that's one way to essentially control and limit the number of alerts that we're getting from EventSentry. And there's more that you can take a look at here. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to set up a filter that will forward certain status changes, in this particular case, status changes of the spooler service to our desktop action. So how do we do that? So first, let's take a look and make sure that the spooler service is not actually excluded. So we're going to review the list of services here, and we can just use the keyboard to kind of drill down here. And you can sort the list here, and this list is already sorted. And the spooler service should, of course, not be excluded by default because it can be critical, and we want that service, generally speaking, we want that service to be running, especially in workstations. Not so much on servers, of course. But in any case, it's not listed, so that's good. So we should be getting alerts when that service changes its status. And we're going to try that out right now. We're going to go to the print spooler and we're going to hit stop. So now if we go down to the event viewer, we should see an alert letting us know that that service changed its status. And there it is. It's an informational event because that's how it's configured. And there we go. It says the status of service spooler, print spooler changed from running to stop. Great. Now we want to get all these notifications about the spooler service sent to a custom action. So we're going to create a new package for this. We could, of course, add this to an existing package if we had a package already for other service monitoring events, but we don't. So we're just going to hit add here. I'm going to call it service monitoring, just in general. I'm going to call it that. I'm going to assign it just to the local machine here. And we're going to make our life a little bit easy. We're going to go to the application event log, going to right click here, and we're going to say add include filter. It's going to add as well. Where do you want to add this? We're going to say service monitoring, and then we're going to say print spooler activity. So now it pre-created a filter for us with the general properties of this event: application event log, informational event, service monitoring with the event ID. We don't have an action in there quite yet, so we're going to pick that. I'm going to add the desktop action. But if you notice, this is going to apply to any service status change. So not just the print spooler, but any service that changes its status is going to be matched by this filter. And we do not want that. We only want this to apply to the print spooler. So what we're going to do is we're going to restrict this further with the content filter. I'm going to hit plus here. I'm going to go to insertion string match. And going to click the preview button. And here's the template of our event that says the status of service %1 changed from %3 to %4. Now, we don't really care whether it starts or stops. We just want to basically see on the desktop anytime something happens to that service. So how do we do that? So the %1 refers to the key name. But let's just review that again real quickly. So if we go back here and we click on that event again, we can see that it's called spooler, right? So this is the %1 text. So back here, we're going to go hit plus, insertion string match. Again, %1 matches spooler. So now we've restricted this. So any service monitoring alert that comes through where the service is the spooler, it's going to get sent to the desktop. So I'm going to go home and deploy this. The service is still stopped currently. We're going to wait for that 10:35 event, and it's already there. And now let's just go ahead and start that service again. Now, service monitoring is not done in real time, so it can take up to 10 seconds or so to get the alert. But the alert is already here, and it says here the status of service spooler changed from stopped to running. And that's really how simple it is. It's simply just create a quick alert to say, hey, we just want to see all service activity on the desktop. You could also, of course, forward this to an email, forward it to another type of notification, like, for example, Slack or Discord or Microsoft Teams or whatnot. Or you could set up a filter, for example, that forwards all events that pertain to services being added on a host. So you may not care that a service gets removed or changes its status, but maybe you're sensitive for security reasons to any service or driver being added. So then you could set up a notification similar to this one that simply matches the event ID that is logged when a service is created.